Hello and welcome to Geometry Circle Vocabulary. In this video, we will define and name circles and identify and name their parts, including special points, segments, and lines. A circle, by definition, is the set of all points that are equidistant from a given point. And so looking at this particular circle, we see that J is the center of that circle. And then all of the points on this line on the outside are going to be that same distance from point J. So there are an infinite number of points on a circle. And when we name our circle, you're going to put a circle with a little dot in the middle, and then you're going to name it using its center. And then you could also, of course, write out circle J. The circumference of the circle is your perimeter of your circle. And so when you look at your reference sheet for your EOC, you'll notice that a lot of the shapes such as cones or cylinders refer to using the perimeter of the base. When they are talking about the perimeter, they're talking about the circumference of that circle because the circle is the base. To find circumference, we have two formulas. We have circumference equals 2 pi r and circumference equals pi d. 2 times the radius is equal to d, so you can use the radius or the diameter. And so let's go ahead and label this as the center of our circle. Your diameter is going to be the segment that goes through the center and has both end points on the circle. So looking at this, we have GC would be the diameter. And so when we go to name it, we're just going to name it just like we would a segment. For the radius, it's going to be a segment with one end point on the circle and the other at the center. So it goes from the center to the outside of the circle. And we see that JD is a radius of our circle, but we can also say that JC is also a radius and JG is also a radius. A radius is going to be 1/2 of our diameter. So the diameter is made up of 2 radii. When we go to name it, we're going to name it just like we would a segment. So we have JD would be one, JC would be another, but also we also have some that aren't drawn. We know the center of our circle, so any of these points that lie on the circle like this, we could also name those as radii as well. So JB would also be a radii. AJ would also be a radius. And going back to a point we just made, we are going to say that the radius is 1/2 of our diameter, or we could also write this as r equals diameter divided by 2. And that makes our diameter equal to 2 times the radius. Both of these formulas are on your EOC reference sheet, but you still need to know what is the radius and what is the diameter to be able to use those formulas. A chord is a segment whose endpoints are on the circle. So AB would be a chord, but then also GC would be the chord. And so the largest chord is always going to be a diameter. And we're going to name that just like we did before, just like going back to naming segments. A secant is a line that intersects the circle at 2 points, and that means it contains a chord. So when I look at this, AB is a chord when we write it as a segment, but when we're talking about line AB, that is going to be a secant. And so a secant would be AB, but with your double arrows on the top to name it as a line, or we would say line AB. And then AB, the segment, would be our chord. A tangent is a line, segment, or ray that intersects the circle at exactly one point. And that's called the point of tangency. So looking at this line down here, EF, E would be the point of tangency. And we could say that ray EF is a tangent. We could say line EF is a tangent. And then if we are talking about a segment, we could also say segment EF is also a tangent. They are only intersecting with that circle at one point. It's very hard to draw that in real life, but we can see that this is only intersecting at point E. And for reference here, that means that when I draw my radius down to that point of tangency, this needs to be a right angle. And there's reasons for that when we think about the diameter. So say this is a diameter. That tangent line would have to be parallel to that diameter to only hit that circle at one point. And so that means it's going to be perpendicular to the radius. An arc is a portion of a circle's boundary, so a part of your circumference. And so when we're naming that, we often talk about whether it's a minor or a major arc. So if I'm talking about the arc of AB, I would name it something like AB with this arc symbol on the top. And then for major arcs, so this is for arcs that are more than 180. We're going to use 3 letters. So in looking at this circle that I have here, which is an abbreviated version on the left, if I was talking about this arc here, I would name it CGD, and I would use 3 points to tell me that I'm going to the left, starting with C, G, and then going over to D. For the minor arc, I would only use 2 letters to let people know that I'm talking about this smaller one. So for minor arcs, that's going to be less than 180. And then we also have semicircle arcs. And so I would either need to say that it is a semicircle arc, CDG, or I would have to say CG, but then I would have to label it as being that semicircle arc. That way I know which direction I'm going in. And no matter what, with a semicircle, it's always going to be 180 degrees. But if you want to specify whether you're talking about this side or this side, you would have to be a little bit more specific in your description. And we will get into this in a later video, but if we are finding an arc, you're still going to use your circumference, so 2 pi r formula. But then once you find out how many degrees that arc will be, you would put the degrees over 360. And that's kind of just saying, hey, we are looking at an arc that is this portion of our entire circle, which is that 360 degrees. And so this will be covered in a later video, but you can go ahead and add it now to your vocabulary. And really, you're just multiplying what you would have for your entire circumference by that fraction of your circle. A sector is a region of a circle bounded by a central angle. And its intercepted arc. So basically, when we're talking about sectors, this would be the arc that they're talking about, and then this is your central angle. And then they're talking about the area within that portion of the circle. So if I'm looking at major sector CGD, I would be talking about this piece here, and that means that your major sector is more than your semicircle. So you're going to put sector and then you're going to use 3 letters. And if I'm talking about minor sector CD, that means we're talking about the minor arc CD and then the central angle CJD, and then we're taking the area of that piece there. And then, of course, your semicircle would be only half of your circle. And so semicircle CDG is letting me know that we are talking about CDG, that semicircle arc. And then we're talking about this straight angle CJG. And then we're talking about the area within that piece here. And that concludes our video on circle vocabulary.